Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It is Simply Destiny, and today I'm so excited for the video that I have for you all. As you guys can see by the title, it is all things NCLEX. It feels so good to be on the other side. It feels so good to finally be in a position to be able to talk to you guys and give you the 411 on NCLEX. So if you are interested in watching how I passed the NCLEX, my first try, continue to watch. I didn't really start studying until I got my ATT, or I didn't really start taking the whole thing as serious as I did once I got my ATT. So the program that I graduated from, we did have a boot camp after graduation. It was free of charge and it was not mandatory, but I did participate. It was 3 times a week. And we all met as a class. Basically, we went over UWorld questions, we went over content, we went over just all of the sections that the NCLEX would cover. We went over all of that, like the outline of the test. We did all of that. It was like a weekly check-in with each other. We went through the process of putting our applications together. So it was really helpful. And so we started that, I think, 2 weeks after graduation. So like the end of December. And we would do like maybe like 20, 30 questions max together. And then I would do like 30 questions on my own. But I didn't really take it serious, like I said, until I got my ATT. Some days I would do 30 questions a day, some days I wouldn't. I just wasn't there mentally yet. And so, yeah, I just would do a couple of questions here and there. And we got our UWorld, because my school also paid for our UWorld subscription. Shout out to them for that. That was really helpful, because as you know, UWorld is expensive. It's so worth your money. So if you do have to pay for it out of pocket, it is worth it. And if my school didn't pay for it, I definitely was going to purchase it myself anyways. So it is an investment. But yeah, so they purchased that for us, and we had access in November. So a month before graduation, we were able to access UWorld. I did not access UWorld a month before graduation because a lot was going on. You know, we had our exit exams coming up, and my program was Kaplan based. So of course our exit exam was Kaplan based. So I was just focusing on Kaplan's QBank and their practice exams, so that way I could be prepared for my exit exam, you know, one step at a time. So yeah, I didn't use UWorld when we first got our subscriptions. After that, so I would do 30 questions here and there while we were in boot camp. And then all the while though, like while I was just doing these 30 questions here and there, I was still doing my application process. I put in my application, I believe January like 22nd. I got my ATT February the 2nd. Yeah, February the 2nd. And that's when shit got real, okay? That's when I really started to think like, oh my God, like NCLEX is literally right around the corner at this point, because I knew that once I got my ATT, like I wanted to pick a date within the month, because within that month or the following month. So either February 26th or early March. That's what I was thinking in my mind. So I knew that once I got my ATT, things were gonna get real, and things did get real. I got super stressed out. It was a very overwhelming time for me. Like, if you guys are, you know, studying for your NCLEX right now, trust me, I was there. I understand your pain, and just know that there's light at the end of the tunnel. So yeah, I was extremely stressed out during this time, and thank God for the boot camp, because my professor was just literally like my rock during this process. She was so helpful. You know, she would call me to check in, like, okay, like, cause she knew that I was the first person in my class to test. So I didn't tell my other classmates, but she knew, of course. And so she would call me like, okay, you know, your test date is coming close. Let's come up with a plan. Let's come up with a schedule. What we're going to do, how many questions we're going to do this day, and, you know, things like that. And I would tell her, you know, I'm stressed out. Like, I know I have all these questions to get through, and I was like way behind all of my other classmates with their UWorld questions. And it was because like I would be so stressed out to the point where I would literally like just go to sleep to run away from all my responsibilities. It got that real. The struggle was real, okay? So I would do that, and she would just tell me like, no, like, don't do that. You know, if anything, you have something to look forward to now. So this should put fire under your butt. It should give you, you know, that motivation that you needed, and, you know, just focus on the end goal. All of this is for something. All of this will pay off. All of this stress, all of these feelings of uncertainty, all of that is going to pay off. Just put the work in. You know, you're almost at the finish line. Just put the work in, and you are going to be good. And so that really reassured me. And so after that, I started to pick up the amount of questions that I would do a day, because like I said, I was behind all my classmates when it came to the QBank and UWorld. And also, just to let you guys know, the UWorld subscription that I had came with the 2 self-assessments and the 2,100 plus QBank questions, which all of the subscriptions come with that amount of questions, I believe. But yeah, so mine came with the 2 self-assessments. So I took my first self-assessment, I believe January 26th. And I got a 37. I ranked in the 37th percentile, and that gave me a projected like borderline expectancy of passing NCLEX. So if you are not familiar with UWorld, if you have the self-assessments, it would rank you, and then it'll give you like your projected chance of passing of passing NCLEX. So that first self-assessment, I got borderline, you know, expectancy of passing. And honestly, I was not like discouraged, or I didn't feel like, wow, I have no chance of, you know, passing this thing. That actually made me feel really good, because like I said, I wasn't really doing that many questions per day, and I was really doubting myself, and I really felt like, how am I going to remember all this information? That was a constant battle for me. Like, I would constantly, and that's what really stressed me out. Like, I would constantly be like, oh my God, how am I going to remember all this? Like, how am I going to do this? Like, am I smart enough to pass NCLEX? Like, people take it and people don't pass. That's the reality of it. And I felt like, am I smart enough to be one of the ones who takes it and passes it? Like, I would just second guess myself, and that's not good, because just because you don't pass the first time does not mean you're dumb, does not mean, you know, you don't have what it takes to be a good nurse. None of those things. But your mind starts to play tricks on you. So that's what mine was doing. And then I found a location that was close to me, maybe like 30 minutes away from me. If that, honestly, it was probably like 20 minutes. I found that location, and it was March 9th. So I picked that date, March 9th, 2021 at 9 a.m. So I had my date, guys. That really put some fire under my butt. Like, you gotta go hard. Like, despite your mind playing tricks on you, despite all this stress, you gotta go hard. And so I didn't want to tell anybody my testing date, because I'm like, oh my God, what if I fail? People are gonna be like, oh, you know, you tested today, how'd it go? I did not want to like face that. And I felt myself telling people though, like, even though that's not something I wanted to do, because of the fear of like, what if I don't pass? And I told all these people my test date. So if you are one of those people who feel like telling other people it's gonna stress you out, don't tell people. I thought that was me, and it was me, but for some reason when people ask me, certain people, when they would ask me, I would just tell them. So like, I told my job. I did not want to tell them, but I told my job, you know. Sometimes when people ask you something, you don't even have time to think. It just comes out. So that's how that happened. I told my professor. I told my family, because they were also my rock during this time, really motivating me. I told everyone super close to me my testing day, because they were actually super helpful. They gave me the motivation every single time that I felt like I can't do this. Like, I'm overwhelmed. They always grounded me, and they always told me, you got this. Like, you have been putting the work in, so you're gonna get the return that you wanted. Like, you are studying day in and day out. there's no way you can fail. That's what they would tell me. And it would be like, you know what, you're right. I'm studying, I'm doing my part, so I have to pass. So yeah, that was the benefit of telling people, because then they were able to be there for me when I really needed that pick me up. So yeah, be selective of who you tell, though. Don't tell naysayers, don't tell negative people. Tell people who you genuinely feel like have your best interest at heart. So that's it with that. So I have my test date, March 9th, 2021. So from that day, I started to go hard, like from 10 a.m. to maybe sometimes like 11 at night, I was doing questions. And of course, I would get distracted in between that time, and, you know, I would take little breaks here and there. But that was my schedule every single day up until my test date. I even took off work. I was already not really working much hours because of the fact that I was in school. So I took off of work, and thankfully I was able to do that, take off of work, because the less responsibilities you have, like as far as working obligations or just a bunch of, as long as less responsibility as you have during this time, the better. And that is not to say if you have kids or if you have a full-time job, you can't do this, because I have seen it. People in my class have done it. So I know it can be done. But thankfully, I didn't have to worry about all that. I didn't have to juggle so much during this time, which I believe helped me out a lot. So yeah, I took off of work. And so every day I would get up and I would do questions. So I started to do like 50 questions. So from 30 questions a day, I would do like 50 questions a day. 50 questions a day. I would break that up sometimes into like sets of 30 or sets of 20, just because I'm the type of person, I can't do a lot of questions at once, especially like while I'm studying, because it takes me a really long time to get through my sets of questions, because not only am I doing the questions, I'm really going through the rationale. And over the course of time, I started to realize, don't spend so much time on things you already know, just go. And that's what my professor would tell me, like, you don't have, especially when it was like a week or 2 weeks before my test date, she was like, you don't have time to go through these rationales with a fine-tooth comb. Trust that you know this information, trust that you have come across this, and just go on to the next question, you know? And so that's what I started to do over the course of time. In the beginning of UWorld, you're gonna feel like, dang, like I never even came across this in nursing school. That's exactly how I felt. I felt like, I don't remember any of this. I didn't see any of this in nursing school. Well, I'm not gonna say any of it, but I'm gonna say a good amount of it, okay? Like, I didn't see this. So those things I really did have to really go through the rationales and really teach myself. And I would just go through all of my questions. I would break it down into smaller sets. So from 50 questions a day, then I would go to 75 questions a day. And then I would break that 75 down into smaller sets. If you can do 50, 75 sets in just one set and go through, then that's good. Just do that. That way you don't have to break it down into smaller sets. But that's what I did. And I had like a little booklet of my notes, and I'll show you guys later because it's not right here with me. But I had like a little pocket size type of note card thing, and I wrote all of my notes from all of the notes that I had while I was doing all of my UWorld questions. I wrote all of the notes in there, and that's just what really helped me. So from 75 questions a day, I would even do like 100 questions a day, because I was really trying to finish my UWorld QBank by the end of February. So by the last day of February, so like February 28th, I was trying to finish my UWorld QBank. And so I had to do like 100 questions a day, maybe like 3 or 4 times, so I could meet that deadline. I kind of went over that deadline a little bit, maybe like 2 to 3 days. But yeah, so I did 100 questions a day, maybe like 3 or 4 times. And I definitely broke that down into smaller sets. And then I would just go through the rationale, write down whatever I didn't know, and I would just move on. And then I started to do the timed mode, because I struggled with time throughout nursing school too. So I started to do it on the tutor/time mode, so that way I could really get in the routine of, you know, going quick, not spending 10, 20, 30 minutes on a question, which I had a bad habit of doing. So once I did that, I did my second self-assessment. Maybe like, so the Sunday before I tested on a Tuesday. I took my second self-assessment that Sunday, and I still had a couple of days before my exam, and I'm like, okay, I still want to do some questions. So then I went to Kaplan and I did like 2 of their NCLEX exams, and it wasn't bad for me. But all of my other Kaplan exams that I did not score that well, and that's why I hated it so much. I didn't score that well. But after I had went through all of UWorld and then circled back to Kaplan as like my last resort type of thing, I did see that I improved a lot in how I scored on Kaplan. So anyways, once I finished all my UWorld questions, I did get like super big like posters to stick on my wall, and I wrote like really important things that I wanted to make sure I didn't forget. Like I had lab values, and all of the lab values that I would see throughout UWorld, I jotted those values down, because as you know, when you are in nursing school, 3 or 4 different books will have 3 or 4 different lab values for the same thing. So for potassium, in one book it could say one thing, and another book, in one book it can say one thing, and another book it can say another thing, and your professor could say one thing. So as I was going through UWorld, I just jotted down all of those values, and I put those on a big poster, and I put them on my wall. Endocrine system, like hyperthyroidism, hypothyroidism, I just wrote down the signs and symptoms of it, the complications of it, and then what other things? Oh, insulin, because I know that that's like a big thing. I didn't actually get any questions on NCLEX about insulin. No, I didn't. But I definitely wrote, it's going to be a graph that UWorld is going to have for you. It's going to have like all of the insulins, and it's going to break it down. So it's going to have like the short acting insulin, and it's going to break down those, and then it's going to have long acting insulin, and it's going to give you the names of those, and intermediate give you the name of that. And I wrote it out just like I saw it on UWorld. And then I wrote down the peak times for each. I wrote down the duration of each, because those are really important, especially peak times of each. And if you listen to Mark Klimek, which I also listened to, I also used him as a study tool. I'll get into that in a second. But I did jot down the peaks for each one, because those are really important, and Mark Klimek touches bases on that a lot. So if you are studying like insulins, really focus on the peak time, because that's really important. So yeah, I did that, and a couple of other things too. And then I mentioned Mark Klimek, so I would listen to Mark Klimek audios. My classmates sent all of us the audios during the school semester. I didn't listen to them while I was in school. I wish I did, because he's so good. Like, Mark Klimek is the truth. He used to write questions for the NCLEX. I believe he said like in 2003. But then, of course, it's like a conflict of interest, because you can't write for NCLEX and then teach, you know, how to pass the NCLEX. So he chose to teach versus to write for NCLEX. So it is really good to have an expert like him teach you, because he knows the type of questions you're going to see. So definitely listen to Mark Klimek audios. I only listened to about 4 of his audios, but they were so helpful. Like, he taught me, like one of the ones where I listened to that like the night before, and it was electrolytes. He broke down how you can, you know, just based off of the prefixes, how you can know what the signs and symptoms are. So for hypocalcemia, or for calcium, he says like the prefixes are opposite. So hypocalcemia, everything is going to be increased. hypercalcemia, everything's going to be decreased. So watch that video. That's a really good video, especially if you struggle with electrolytes. I also struggled with my ABGs, so I listened to his video, and that's another poster that I made, and that video was so helpful. So definitely listen to Mark Klimek. He is the truth. I used UWorld along with Mark Klimek, and like I said, I only used about 4 of his audios, and I printed out his notes that came along with the audio. So the notes follow the audio. So that was really helpful. And so that's basically how I studied for NCLEX. Definitely some really important things to take away. You want to make sure you have a set schedule. You want to make sure that you are setting aside some time for self-care, because self-care is your mental health as well. You know, you can't burn yourself out going through questions day in and day out. And I struggle with that because I felt so guilty whenever I would just go out to eat with my friends or go do something. I felt super guilty, but you have to realize you need that break. You need to step away from those notes so that way you can digest something else, and then you can come back to that and see how much you retained. You know, don't beat yourself up. Don't engage in any negative self-talk. That's another thing that I had to learn throughout the course of studying, was really like checking the way I talk to myself, checking the way I refer to myself, like insulting my own intelligence. You know, don't do that. Don't insult your own intelligence. You are smart. You made it thus far. You got this. Do not engage in negative self-talk, okay? You got this. Trust me. I believe in you. You believe in you. You got this. You've come this far. So, you know, just go hard for what you want. That is what I'm gonna say about that. Also have a check-in buddy. I had a classmate who was a really good friend of mine. Like, we both tested in March. We didn't share our dates with each other, but we knew that we both were testing in March. And so we would study together throughout nursing school as well. So only naturally we were each other's study buddy after we graduated, and we would just check in with each other, especially when March came around, but especially when mid-February came around, we would really check in with each other nearly every day. We would just talk on the phone with each other. Like, even if we weren't doing questions together on the phone, we would just be on the phone doing our own separate set of questions. And if I had a question while she was on the phone, I would just ask her, and vice versa. And then we would do Google Meets. I know some people do like WebEx or other, you know, online platforms, utilize other online platforms to have like little meetups. Google Meets is free. You just go on your Google email and it's on the side, and you click Google Meet, you create a Google Meet, bam, there you go. You can do that. And that's what we would do. We would share our screens, we would go through questions together, and we did that nearly every day, every other day. And yes, it's important to have somebody you check in with, that someone is holding you accountable, someone understands your struggle right now, someone is in the trenches with you, someone who knows exactly where you are. Definitely have someone like that. I had her, she passed her NCLEX, shout out to UK, and then my other friends from nursing school as well. We really held each other accountable. We really prayed for each other. We really believed in one another. So it's important to have a tribe. If they aren't anybody in your nursing school, your nursing program, your best friend, your somebody. I even had a friend who took her NCLEX last year. She would go through questions with me. Like, that was so helpful because she had already crossed that bridge. So she was just giving me hope. Like, you got this. Like, you got this. Trust me, you got this. And she would just tell me, this is what you need to know. You don't need to know this, you know. This is what you really need to focus on. And she would tell me, NCLEX is vague, so you don't need to know the nitty-gritty details, and you also don't need to know everything. And that's one thing I did not know. I did not know you did not need to know everything. Like, you don't need to know everything. So I'm here to let you know, because I didn't know. You don't need to know everything. You just need to know how to be a safe nurse. That's what you need to know. NCLEX is testing your ability to be a safe nurse and your ability not to kill a patient. The basics. That's what NCLEX is testing you on. That's it. You got this, okay? You got it. You are a safe nurse. You got it. And so telling myself that, like, oh, I don't need to know everything, that made me feel good. That really, like, got me through a lot of days. And so that's it of my rant on that. Trying to make sure I don't have any other things to tell you guys. Let me look at my notes really quickly. Okay. Really nice candle burning in my room, and that really grounded me before the exam. So I got a really good night's sleep, woke up early, got ready. I was not nervous, really. Like I wasn't in shambles, or just all over the place. I just wasn't. Like I came to terms with where I was. I kept telling myself, you've been studying for a month, you got this, like you're good. So I just believed in that. Of course there was that voice in my head like, oh my god, like this is really it, but for the most part I was okay. Like I had come to terms with everything, and I believed that I had really studied a lot, and I believed that I had it deep down inside. I believed that I was good. And so I just went to my testing center. The day before, I did drive around the area with my mom, and we saw the area, and it was actually an area that I was pretty familiar with anyways, so that was good to see. And so anyways, I drove there in the morning. I listened to Mark Klimek. I listened to his endocrine video, which is something I probably wish I did beforehand, but I didn't. So I listened to this endocrine video, and I had planned to get there super early, maybe like an hour early, because I wanted to look through my notes again, but it did not happen that way. And that's honestly probably because it wasn't meant to happen that way. So I got there, I kept circling the block because I could not find the little street where the parking lot was. So I finally found the parking lot, and it was probably like 8:50 at this time. And like I said, my exam was at 9 a.m. So I had to like rush in there. I didn't get to look over my notes, do anything. And I only listened to, because like I said, the testing center was only about 25 minutes away from my house. So I only listened to about 25 minutes of the video. It didn't even get to the juicy part yet. So it was really just all on me at that point. So I went in. It was a pretty small testing center, and when you get there, everyone there is not taking the NCLEX. There's people taking several other exams there. You go in, they do your palm, like they scan your palm. You have to take a picture. You have to put all your belongings in a locker. You go over, they pat you down, or she didn't really pat me down, I guess because of COVID. I just had to lift my sleeves up. I had to take my glasses off. She examined my glasses, and I did take a break in between, and she did examine my glasses again when I came back from the restroom. But anyways, I went in. You are being recorded as you're testing. I went in, I started to take my test. Y'all, this was the scariest shit ever, okay? I was so nervous. I was just like, oh my gosh. Like I would come across a question and I'm like, wow, like, okay, not too sure. And I would always come down to two options. And it's like, both of these options are so good. What do I pick? And I would just be like, you know what? I just gotta go. So I would just pick one, go to the next question. Every time I go to the next question, I'm like, oh my God, I don't think I did that right. I don't think I did that right. But they were basic questions, but it was like the way it was worded, it was just, I don't know, it was different. And so I would tell myself, okay, the next question, you're gonna do good. You got it. The next question, you're gonna really get it. And so the next question would come. And then I'll be like, oh, I'm not too sure about this. And then I would start to see that I would get a lot of multiple choice, select all that apply questions. And so I had watched YouTube videos prior to taking the exam, and I heard that that was a really good indicator that you were getting to the higher level questions. So like, as you probably know by now, maybe you don't, but NCLEX is an adaptive exam. So you start at 0 and then you just go up to 1 if you get it right. If you get it wrong, go back to 0. So there's a line. You start off at 0, you get it right, you go up above that line. If you get it wrong, you go back down. If you get it right, you go up. If you get another question you do right, you go higher up. And then if you get it wrong, you drop down. And you can kind of tell based upon the questions, like super easy questions, or like I said, if you come across some select all that applies, you can start to feel that like you are, climbing up the ladder, and you'll start to see when you go back down. It's just like, I'm not gonna lie to you, while you're taking the exam, a great amount of that time, you're gonna feel like, oh shit, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. And like I said, it's not even that the questions were super hard, but it's just like, I don't know how to explain it, but it's very vague. So like, I had questions like, a patient has a peptic ulcer and the provider gave these orders. Which one would you do first? Take them to get an x-ray or just different things. And it's like, I don't know. I never came across a question in that manner before. So, stuff like that. But that's basically how you would see it. And when you get a lot of select all that applies, some people may feel like, oh my God, like they hate me. But that's a good indicator that you're doing good. And so every time I came across the select all that apply question, I'm like, yes, okay, I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I'm doing good. And then it would trip me up sometimes because I would feel like, okay, I got this question right. Why didn't I get a select all that apply? So don't get too much in your head about that type of stuff. It's all speculation, really. But I did hear that was a good indicator that you're doing well. Going to the type of questions that I had some questions, a lot of like delegation questions. You're the nurse and you're working with a LPN, or you're working with a UAP. What can you delegate to the UAP? What can you delegate to the LPN? Mark Klimek has a really good video on delegation. I did not listen to that video, but I did listen to it afterwards, and it is a really good video, and a lot of people say that is a really good video. So definitely listen to that video. But UWorld does a really good job of really nailing that into your brain, like what you can safely delegate to a UAP, what you can safely delegate to a LPN. So I had a lot of those type of questions, a lot of questions about like a float nurse. There's a maternity nurse and she's being floated to the ICU. What patient can she safely have? I had questions about thyroid. So I had questions about like hypothyroidism, hyperthyroidism. Not too many questions, just a couple. I had a question, it was select all that apply, like the early signs of HIV. And that's one thing that I was really stressed out about. You are not expected to know that. Just know your heparin, know your warfarin, know your anticoagulants in general, know your cardiac medications in general, know your know about asthma, know about the treatment for asthma and any respiratory, infection, know about those things. You're not going to be expected to know some random medication. That's one thing Kaplan does a lot, is throw out some random medication that you will never see. Trust me, NCLEX is not going to do that to you. Just know the main things. And so I did have some like a couple of med questions. It wasn't too many med questions. I didn't get any drug calculation questions. I didn't really get too many peds questions either. I probably got like 2 or 3. They usually just ask like straight up questions, and then they'll throw in the fact that they are a pediatric patient, just so that way it can also fit in that specialty area of pediatrics. But I didn't have too many specific peds questions. I did have some maternity questions. I had like a patient is 37 weeks pregnant. She is presenting, she has different signs and symptoms. What would be the priority symptom? What symptom would be a priority to address and I don't remember all the options, but I know one of them was epigastric pain. I picked epigastric pain because of the fact that I know epigastric pain is associated with preeclampsia, so that is why I put that. And so definitely look at that. Don't spend too much time on the specialty areas, but definitely focus on the heavy hitters in these specialty areas, because that is important. Preeclampsia, eclampsia, that is something that is super important within the maternity, specialty. So look into that. Know what you would do to address that issue. So just so you can kind of know how to flow through when you're studying. Say that is all. I feel like I'm leaving something out. Oh, the amount of questions. So, sorry y'all. Y'all know how I am on my lip gloss. I'm so sorry. Okay. So, because I obviously took my exam during COVID, the minimum amount of questions was still 75 when I took it. 75. The max was 140 or 145. Yeah. I was always okay with going to the max because I felt like it's not set in stone. If your exam cuts off in 75, that does not mean you passed, nor does that mean you failed. So it's like you don't really know. And I felt like, okay, and this also contributes to why it's important to not engage in negative self-talk. But I was okay with not ending at 75 questions because I'm like, I don't think I'll be able to prove myself in 75 questions. I'm okay with going the maximum amount of questions because at least I know I'm still in the game. And that is a good way to look at it. So if you are taking your exam, do not get so caught up in the minimum and the maximum. Of course, you don't want to go the full length, but don't make that an issue because it's not a big deal. No one is asking, and no employer is asking, how many questions did you pass your NCLEX on? Of course, it's nice because you don't have to sit for the whole 5 hours or 4 hours to take your exam, but really it doesn't matter. Don't add any extra stress on yourself. So I was always okay with going to the maximum amount of questions because I'm like, okay, at least I know that I'm still in the game and I still have an opportunity to prove myself. Y'all, when my exam cut off at 80 questions, I literally was like, oh shit, like, no. This is not happening to me. And also, I've never come across anybody's story where their exam cut off at 80. I always hear 75. I never hear any number in the middle of that range between the minimum and the maximum amount of questions. So I was thrown off by that. When my exam kept going after 75, I was like, okay, good. Like I said, like I'm still in the game. I got this. But when it cut off at 80, I was so shocked. Like, especially because while I'm going through the exam, I'm like, okay, no. So I was like, no, there's no way. Like I was saying to myself, like, damn, what the hell? Like, I know I got that wrong. I know I got this wrong. I know I got that wrong. And when it cut off at 80, I was just like, wow, like, no. I'm not done. I didn't improve myself. I need to go more. I need to do more questions. It cut off at 80, y'all. So it cut off at 80. And then the sample questions for, upcoming exams came up. I did that for like a good 20-30 minutes. And then I raised my hand because it was so much. I was just so in my head. I'm like, no. My exam cut off at 80. This is not okay. Like I was really stressed about that. I was not feeling confident. And so I raised my hand and I just asked the lady there who was proctoring the exam. I just asked her, like, do I have to complete this whole thing? And she was like, no, you can cut off at any time. I cut that off. I was like, I cannot sit here and do these questions. My mind is still on the fact that my exam cut off at 80. So do not feel like you have to do those questions at the end of your exam. You don't have to do them, especially if you're just not there with it mentally. Just don't do it. So I was not there. So I had to stop it. So I ended it. I left, and I was just like, I called my professor, and I'm just like, oh my God, like, I finished, but I'm just not confident. And she's like, you got this. She was so happy for me, and I was just like, I don't know. Then, y'all, I did the Pearson VUE trick. So the Pearson VUE trick is when you go onto Pearson VUE and you act as if you are scheduling a whole nother exam. And you put in your card information, make sure you put, mix up a digit. So just in case your card is not being charged $200 again. So I put in my card information. When it came to the expiration date, I put the wrong information. This was 3 hours after I tested. I got the good pop-up. So I felt good. I'm like, okay. But then I watched YouTube videos, and it was like, that's not 100% accurate. So I'm like, oh shit, like, okay, I'm still stressed out because that's not accurate. And it was the most stressful 48 hours of my life, because you have to wait the 48 hours before you can get like the quick results on Pearson VUE. So it was the most stressful 48 hours ever. I was so stressed out. Like, it was stressful. And so even with that good pop-up, and then let me tell y'all, so I got the good pop-up 3 hours after I tested, and then I did it again maybe like 45 minutes after that, and I still got the good pop-up. That night, right before I was going to bed, y'all, I got the bad pop-up, and I just X'd out so quick, and I was like, oh hell no. Like, that's when I was just like, like, I am through. I was just, it was a mess. It was a mess, really. And so then, I waited the 48 hours, and then I paid for the quick results, even though 48 hours is not quick. I paid for the quick results after the 48-hour time period, and that's when I got my results, and your girl passed. I passed. And seeing that, it just felt so good. I worked so hard, y'all, and I just didn't believe that I had what it took. I mean, deep down inside, I believed it, but on the surface, I did not believe that I had what it took to pass the NCLEX, let alone in 80 questions. So it was just a really surreal feeling for me, and I'm blessed. I'm so happy to be on the other end, and I just want to let y'all know, y'all got this. You are smart, you are capable, you're gonna do fine. Put in the work, go hard, for the 3 to 4 weeks, however long you feel like it's gonna take you to study. Go hard. Make the sacrifices. You're not gonna be able to go out with your friends, really. You're not gonna be able to do anything. You're gonna be stuck in your room from sunup to sundown studying, but you just have to remind yourself, this is just a moment in my life. This is not my whole life. This is just a moment of my life. I just have to do this for a moment. And just believe in yourself and know that you got this. And yes, comment down below if you are testing soon. Comment down below if you've passed your NCLEX and you have any tips to share with the collective. I really want to hear from you guys. And yes, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it wasn't all over the place, because I can talk. So I hope it wasn't all over the place. I hope it was really informative, and I hope you guys really got something from this video. And as always, I love y'all. And if you guys enjoy my shirt, which says nurses are dope, because we are, I've been working on this line, and it will be made available very, very, very soon. So keep a lookout on that. I will link the Instagram down below. And yes, I will see you guys in my next upload.